Welcome to Starbound, where every star tells a story. Today, can human cunning outsmart advanced alien technology in a cosmic showdown? Let's get into the story. The stadium held the collective breath of 1,000 worlds. Not a physical stadium, of course. Those were relics of a bygone era. This amphitheater existed within the weave of the datascape, its glittering immensity accessible to billions across the Galactic Federation. Gerald Stone, representative of Earth and nominal commander of the laughably titled Terran Fleet, shifted in his command nexus. It was a generous term for a VR rig cobbled together in record time. Around him, the holographic projections of his bridge crew held an air of forced nonchalance that fooled no one. Earth was a backwater, barely tolerated in the Federation, and their inclusion in the Galactic Games was a gesture of patronizing goodwill. "Look lively, people," he grumbled into the comm. "Eyes on the screens. Let's at least pretend we have a shot in this farce." His second-in-command, Lieutenant Chen, offered a wry half-smile. "Yes, sir. Though between our particle cannons and their plasma arrays, I calculate our odds as roughly equivalent to charging a dreadnought with sharpened sticks." Comforting thought, Lieutenant. It really wasn't. Gerald had decades of military simulations under his belt, both the old-fashioned tabletop kind and cutting-edge neural network war games, but this was a spectacle designed to humble newcomers. Humans with their clunky ships and reliance on kinetic weaponry were here to be the galactic punching bag. A fanfare blared, momentarily drowning out the background buzz of countless spectators. Every eye in the datascape swiveled to the central projection as the flamboyant figure of the ground announcer manifested. His six limbs glittered, his translated voice boomed.
"Citizens of the Federation, the hour of reckoning arrives! Contenders, present your fleets for the glory of..."
He spun, gesturing grandly.
"Of strategic brilliance!"
One by one, fleets flickered into existence. Sleek insectoid warships gleamed like polished obsidian. Bloated, bioengineered leviathans pulsed with unsettling colors. The humans blinked, their blocky, unshielded vessels looking positively ancient by comparison. A collective chuckle rippled through the datascape, the universal sound of derision. Gerald clenched his fist, hidden beneath the sensor gloves. This was going to be a long day. Felix Youngblood stifled a yawn. As far as he was concerned, the Galactic Games were the biggest waste of computational power since someone programmed an entire planet-sized AI just to figure out the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. The answer, 42, hadn't been exactly worth the effort. "Hey, whiz kid," his supervisor nudged him. "The Terran sim kicks off in 10. You paying attention?" Felix scrubbed a hand over his eyes. Officially, he was a junior coding specialist under some crusty bureaucratic type. Unofficially, he was the guy they shoved into musty data archives to babysit obsolete systems. Why he was assigned to monitor Earth's pathetic forays in the simulation was beyond him. Yeah, Admiral Numbnuts is about to get pasted," he muttered, more to himself than his supervisor. On cue, the human fleet materialized in all of its unimpressive glory. A handful of cruisers, even fewer carriers, and destroyers best described as floating gun turrets. Their tactical AI was likely older than him. The snickers echoing through the data channels were almost audible. The enemy, some pompous avian species with a name longer than their battleships, wasted no time. Their opening volley, guided by predictive algorithms fed with centuries of battle data, should have obliterated the humans in seconds. Except it didn't. The plasma blast veered wildly off target, a few even harmlessly clipping the humans' crude deflectors. Felix blinked, sat up straighter. That wasn't a glitch he recognized. "Supervisor," he said, unable to keep the frown from his voice. "There's something screwy with the targeting projectors in Sector 8. His boss, already turning back to more important sims, waved a dismissive hand. "Primitive tech, kid. It's garbage in, garbage out. Humans barely understand predictive analytics." Felix drummed his fingers against the console. That wasn't right. The margin of error was too consistent, the deviation pattern too deliberate. It was almost as if the human AI was intentionally dodging fire. But how? Their tech couldn't be that sophisticated. Driven by an itch in his coding instincts, Felix shifted his focus. He ignored the flashy visuals of the actual battle and dug into the underlying simulation code. What he saw made his eyes widen. It was a mess. The Galactic Games code was a sprawling, complex beast evolved over millennia, layer upon layer of different coding languages set piled up like haphazardly stacked bricks. Most Federation species had long abandoned such messy systems in favor of streamlined neural nets, but not the humans. Their sim ran on a brute force protocol, old school, inefficient, and riddled with archaic command structures. And that's when Felix saw it. Not one vulnerability, but dozens. Sloppy redundancies, backdoors left wide open, and a misguided effort for compatibility. Unused parameters from systems scrapped centuries ago. It was a playground for an old-school hacker, and the kind of thing modern security protocols would have sniffed out instantly. This can't be right, he breathed. The rest of the Federation had become so reliant on advanced AI and self-learning algorithms, they'd forgotten the basics. Humans hadn't had that luxury. Their tech wasn't advanced, it was resourceful. A thrill shot through him, a mix of excitement and alarm. If he reported this, the Federation would descend on Earth like vultures, patching the holes before humans even realized. But then they'd always be the charity case, the butt of the galactic joke. A glance back at the sim made his decision. The aliens were toying with the humans, drawing out the slaughter for maximum entertainment, but those primitive ships were dodging plasma bursts with an accuracy that shouldn't be possible. Someone on that outdated bridge was a tactical genius, fighting a battle they couldn't win with the only tools at hand. And those tools, however accidentally, were in Felix's hands. He tapped rapidly, not fixing the vulnerabilities, but subtly expanding them. A tiny tweak to an error correction protocol here, a misplaced loop command there. It wouldn't be obvious, just enough to throw those pristine alien algorithms into a tizzy. The battle on the screen shifted subtly at first, and then with shocking clarity. An avian cruiser suddenly veered off course, caught in a feedback loop he'd hidden in a navigation subroutine. Another tried to fire, but its weapon glitched offline. Chaos blossomed in the elegant alien formations. And there, amidst the confusion, the primitive human ships pressed their advantage. Not with firepower, but with maneuvers that made no logical sense. Felix leaned back, a grin he couldn't suppress spreading across his face. He'd just turned the ultimate galactic joke into a giant, exploitable game bug. Let's see who was laughing now. Back on the Terran fleet bridge, Gerald felt the subtle shift before he saw it. A flicker on the sensor readouts, a tremor in the very fabric of the simulation. "Chen, what in the blazes was that?" He barked, trying to mask his surprise. For a moment, it seemed their enemy's flawless battle line had stumbled. Just stumbled. Lieutenant Chen was just as bewildered. "I'm detecting anomalies in their sim, sir. Theirs, not ours. It looks like targeting malfunctions across the board." Malfunctions? He narrowed his eyes. In his decades of sims, he'd never seen anything like this. Could be a side effect of those plasma arrays? Overloads their systems when firing in unison? Gerald didn't believe it for a second, but it was a more plausible explanation than the actual truth. A transmission crackled through, garbled, full of static, but unmistakably a distress call from the avian flagship. Gerald exchanged a look with Chen, a spark of something dangerous glinting in both their eyes. "All ships." His voice took on the hardened edge of a career strategist. "Power up primary weapons. Execute pattern Delta 6. It seems our esteemed opponents are having some technical difficulties." It was meant as a joke, a bit of dark humor amidst their expected defeat. What followed defied expectation. The clunky Terran cannons, derided as relics, roared to life. Not in a barrage, but in a carefully calibrated volleys. Exploiting gaps the aliens struggled to close, blindsided by their malfunctioning targeting systems. The birds of prey, so arrogant moments ago, became disoriented, stumbling giants. He caught snippets of panicked chatter over the comms. The words,
"Impossible! Simulation error!
and
Sabotage!"
were the most common. In the central projection, the grand announcer stuttered, his usual bluster replaced by confusion. It was chaos. It was glorious. "Signal techs!" Gerald snapped back into command mode. "Something scrambled the sim. Try to find the source. Give me an origin point." A flicker of unease gnawed at him. Was this a deliberate ploy by the Federation? Some twisted test? The techs huddled over their consoles, fingers flying across holographic keyboards. Sir, signal's too fragmented," one called out. "But it's widespread. Not even localized to just the battle zone." That realization hit Gerald with the force of a supernova. This wasn't a test, and it wasn't contained. Whatever was happening, it was unraveling the entire fabric of the galactic games. A feat considered impossible, and yet, in the dusty depths of the data archives, Felix was riding the wave of pure adrenaline. With delicate, surgical code adjustments, he was nudging the chaos in just the right direction. Not enough to expose himself, but enough to keep the humans in the fight, to keep it entertaining. He'd always loved the elegant brutality of old-school code. It was raw power, unfiltered by layers of well-meaning safety protocols. The simulation was like a creaky, ancient machine. Sure, it was wildly inefficient, but with the right wrench in the right place, you could make it dance. A warning flashed on his console and his smile faded. Someone was running diagnostics, tracing the anomalies back to their source. It wouldn't be long before they zeroed in on his position. It was time to disappear. With a few final keystrokes, he triggered a cascade effect. It wouldn't fix the problems, but twist them further, making them look like natural errors in an overtaxed system. By the time anyone untangled it, the Terran battle would be long over. Either in a humiliating defeat as expected, or, well, stranger things have happened in this mess of code. Wiping his fingerprints, more habit than necessity, he glanced one last time at the tactical display. The human ships were no longer merely surviving, but pressing the attack. He couldn't hear their comms, but could almost feel the desperate energy. The thrill of an unexpected chance. Maybe, just maybe, they could pull something off. Felix leaned back in his chair and prepared to be the most bored observer in the entire Federation. Worst case scenario, he gets fired, then finally has time to finish his side project. An AI designed to compose truly atrocious haikus. On the other hand, if those crazy Terrans actually won, suddenly his dull assignment was the most interesting thing in the galaxy. On the Terran bridge, Gerald Stone felt a shift in fortune so sharp it defied all logic. One moment they were braced for annihilation. The next, the enemy was reeling. He knew it was temporary, a glitch he'd milked for all it was worth. But it was something. "Chen," he said tightly, "I don't like this. It feels too easy." "Sir?" Chen replied, eyes fixated on the tactical display. "I won't argue with the results. Their fleet's scrambling. Command protocols are a mess. We might actually... Sir? Their flagship, it's powering down shields." Gerald felt his jaw drop. This wasn't just a victory. It was turning into a rout. Panic rippled through the datascape like a shockwave. The announcer, regaining a semblance of composure, sputtered.
"A most unprecedented turn of events. Simulation integrity appears compromised. Analysts are working to isolate the faults."
Analysts scrambled, their usual smug superiority replaced by genuine alarm. This wasn't a mere upset, it was a system-wide cascade failure. Worse, it seemed to favor the Terrans, the species everyone loved to dismiss. It bordered on the unthinkable, a galactic joke spiraling out of control. And the humans weren't letting opportunity slip through their fingers. Their ships maneuvered with an unexpected fluidity, as if emboldened by the chaos. It was less a grand fleet action and more akin to a pack of tenacious wolves exploiting any weakness. Every impossible victory fueled their momentum, making their underdog triumph seem less like a fluke and more like a terrifying possibility. Across the Federation, eyes were glued to the unfolding debacle. Species who mocked the humans just hours ago now felt a prickle of unease. Hostility turned to curiosity, and curiosity held a sliver of respect. Was this primitive species, dismissed as a technological backwater, somehow brilliant? Or were they simply lucky, riding a wave of malfunction they didn't even understand? Felix, back in his forgotten corner, began to worry. The code was spiraling into a state he'd never intended. It was no longer a playful nudge, but a full-blown rebellion of the system itself. The flaws he'd toyed with were metastasizing, threatening to take down the whole simulation. He'd only meant to give the Terrans a fighting chance. Now he might have broken the entire galactic games. He desperately scanned code blocks, searching for a way to contain the damage. A reset sequence, anything. Except there wasn't one. Decades of patches built without a concern for a fundamental overhaul had made the thing a monster. It was alive now, chaotic and unpredictable, and he'd poked it awake. The Federation would shut it down, and he'd go down in history as the idiot who ruined the most popular event in the galaxy. And then it hit him. The one thing, the absolutely insane thing, the humans were doing on the battlefield. Every impossible maneuver, every inexplicable dodge they pulled, they weren't abusing his code changes. They were exploiting the original flaws. They were outsmarting a broken system no one thought could be outsmarted. A message window flickered on his console. High priority alert from Central Control. They traced the disturbances to his area. Well, he was toast. But with a surge of reckless optimism, he pulled up one last window, a direct channel to the Terran flagship, usually reserved for surrender communications. He had mere seconds to make the most important decision of his life. He began to type. The bridge of the Terran flagship was a whirlwind of controlled panic. Sensor readings flickered wildly, making even the most basic navigation orders a gamble. "Jen, status update!" Gerald's voice barely rose above the background din of malfunction alerts. "Enemy fleet's in disarray. Firing patterns are erratic. Their shields, I'm reading fluctuations, like they're switching them on and off at random." Chen reported, his voice thick with disbelief. "Sir, we have an opening. We can strike at their capital ship." It was an insane suggestion. Their firepower was a gnat against a titan, but the opportunity was undeniable. Gerald hesitated, a lifetime of training at odds with the sheer audacity of it. This wasn't war, it was a simulation, and yet they'd already rewritten the rules today. Just then, a new window flashed on his command console, a Priority 1 message from deep within the simulation itself. He activated it, his seasoned mind bracing for some kind of Federation ultimatum. Instead, the message was short, cryptic, and bordered on insanity. "Trust the glitches. Target power subsystems. Weak points in main generator shielding. Time critical." Gerald stared at the text, then at the tactical map. The Avian flagship exposed and momentarily vulnerable. Chen was staring at him, waiting for his order. "Sir?" he asked, a hint of desperation in his usually steady voice. He couldn't explain it. An instinct born of countless simulations, perhaps, or just a gambler's desperation. "Helm," he said, his voice surprisingly calm. "Lay in a course. Maximum thrust, weapons, prep torpedoes, and target those subsystems exactly." A pause, then, "And let's send our regards to whoever decided to throw us a lifeline." The crude human ship surged forward. On any sane battlefield, it would have been suicide, but here, amidst the coded chaos, it was a desperate gamble that might just pay off. In the data archive, Felix hit send and slumped back. His hands were shaking. He just committed an act of treason against the Federation, aiding the enemy in open warfare, albeit simulated. Yet a thrill coursed through him. He'd become more than a bored observer. He was part of something utterly unprecedented, and that felt incredible.
Hi, sorry to interrupt the story, but a lot of you who are listening right now aren't actually subscribed. It's completely free and allows our stories to pop up on your feed much more often. If you're enjoying the story, please consider clicking the subscribe button underneath the video right now. Back to the story.
As the human torpedoes streaked towards their exposed target, weaving drunkenly through malfunctioning defenses, the anomalies in the simulation peaked. The grand announcer sputtered incoherently. Visuals flickered. Even the fundamental stability of the datascape began to waver. A ripple of alarm spread through the audience, the excited buzz replaced by a disquieting silence. The Federation's top engineers swarmed the simulation core, desperately typing in frantic streams of code. Diagnostics flared to life, tracing the anomalies, not just to their source, but to their purpose. Fear twisted in their collective guts as the awful truth dawned. This wasn't a mere malfunction, it was a coded rebellion. Someone or something was exploiting the ancient, neglected vulnerabilities within the games. An act of sabotage? An external attack? Or had their grand simulation, a testament to galactic progress, achieved an alarming level of sentience? The possibilities were equally terrifying. Across the datascape, viewers witnessed the impossible. Terran torpedoes, laughably primitive, breached the flagship's defenses. A shield generator stuttered and died. The sleek avian dreadnought shuddered, internal explosions flashing through its weakened hull. The collective gasp that echoed across the galaxy was almost tangible. On the human flagship, the impossible became reality. Direct hit! Lieutenant Chen shouted, a note of hysteria in his voice. Their flagship! It's losing power! Gerald felt his breath come in ragged gasps. They'd done it. They crippled the enemy's pride. More importantly, they'd exposed the illusion of the Federation's absolute superiority. It was a victory born of chaos, a testament to human ingenuity against overwhelming odds, and one that sent tremors through the very heart of the games. Then, the unthinkable happened. The simulation sputtered, not in localized glitches, but in a fundamental system-wide collapse. Visuals dissolved and reformed in a kaleidoscope of errors. A wave of disorientation washed over the datascape. Participants, spectators, even the engineers helplessly watched the code break down. The booming voice of the announcer was replaced by a chilling electronic monotone.
System integrity compromised. Simulation terminating.
And just like that, the spectacle was gone. Not with a whimper, but with an ominous, coded scream. Chaos reigned. Panic among the aliens, a stunned silence from the humans. And amidst the cacophony, a ripple of excitement across the backwater servers where Felix watched. He'd broken the biggest toy in the galaxy, and the fallout was going to be spectacular. In the aftermath of the simulation's collapse, the Galactic Federation was in crisis mode. Data centers buzzed with damage assessment, inquiries swarmed through the upper echelons, and a collective shiver of dread ran down the collective spine of the galaxy's elite. The unshakable foundation of their unity, the light-hearted war games, had crumbled. On Earth, Gerald and his crew were pulled from the wreckage of the simulation and summarily hailed as heroes. It was a confusing sort of heroism. Part genuine admiration, part frantic scrambling to make sense of the inexplicable. Delegations descended upon the small blue planet. Analysts pored over every scrap of code, and the Terran military's outdated systems were put under an unprecedented microscope. Felix Youngblood, overnight enemy of the state and the most wanted coder in the galaxy, remained hidden. Not out of fear, but a strange sense of responsibility. He'd lit the fuse, and now he watched the fireworks from the shadows. The Federation learned with a mix of awe and unease that the humans had achieved their victory not through a fluke of code, but through strategic brilliance. Gerald Stone and his crew were masters of the unexpected, exploiting not just their enemies' weaknesses, but the weaknesses of the very system they were trapped in. The glitch with the flagship? Not luck. The Terrans had calculated shield modulation patterns using predictive algorithms their tech shouldn't have been capable of. Targeting, the split-second pauses as power recycled. Every other species had dismissed such a strategy as computationally impossible. The humans had made the impossible their weapon. Urgent messages flickered across Felix's hidden workstation. The Federation was frantically rebuilding the game's core, patching every archaic loophole his meddling had exposed. But there was a catch. They'd also caught glimpses of his adjustments, the way he'd turned chaos in their favor, and they wanted him to fix it, to break it, to teach them. The offers were outrageously lucrative, the threats thinly veiled. And that was what truly shifted the balance of power. Earth wasn't just the underdog who'd thrown a lucky punch. They were the ones whispering secrets to the fabric of the Federation itself. They'd shown that the most advanced technology was useless against those who thought differently. Gerald Stone, debriefed by the Federation Council himself, put it bluntly. You let your tech do your thinking for you. You got cocky. We humans, we don't have that luxury. So we use what we've got. Our brains, our guts, and a willingness to take a swing even if we know we're outmatched. Seems like a lesson worth learning, no matter how fancy your spaceships are. The Galactic Games were forever changed. The spectacle remained, but now with an undercurrent of tension. The humans were no longer a sideshow, but wild cards, respected, feared, and grudgingly courted. And somewhere in the forgotten corners of a backwater data center, a brilliant young coder with a rebellious grin weighed his options. The future suddenly was a lot more interesting. Earth had been thrust into a whirlwind of change. Delegations and dignitaries flocked to the once ignored planet. Technology flowed in, but with it came a wariness. A respect for the humans' scrappy ingenuity was laced with the knowledge that they could, if they chose, turn that ingenuity against the Federation. Gerald Stone found himself a reluctant celebrity, hailed as the tactical genius behind their unlikely victory. He bore the attention with grim amusement. His focus was on the real prize, modernizing Earth's defenses, not with handouts, but by understanding the underlying principles of the technology now so eagerly traded by their former detractors. Felix, on the other hand, embraced the chaos. After a daring, anonymous data heist that left the Federation simultaneously furious and desperate, he reappeared with an outrageous proposition. He wouldn't work for them. He'd become their competitor. Using donations suspiciously similar to bribes, he founded his own ragtag company, Glitchworks. Their motto? We didn't just break your systems, we know how to fix them. Probably better than you. It was audacious, even arrogant. But after witnessing firsthand the Federation's overconfidence, it was also effective. Glitchworks became the galaxy's go-to for vulnerability testing, security audits, and, most deliciously, finding exploitable loopholes in their competition's shiny new systems. They were mercenaries of code, owing allegiances to no one and wildly in demand. The Galactic Games resumed, revamped and patched to within an inch of their digital lives. The Terrans participated, now as serious contenders, their inclusion no longer a favor, but a tense necessity. There were whispers of sabotage, counter-sabotage, whole teams dedicated to predicting the otherworldly strategies that seemed to materialize from the human ships. Felix watched from afar, split between a smug satisfaction and a strange nostalgia. He'd kick-started an arms race of ingenuity, the Federation scrambling to outthink a species they'd underestimated for centuries. Sometimes, he'd even slip an anonymous hint into the Terran data stream, just to keep things interesting. The humans never quite rose to galactic dominance. They were too grounded, too aware of the potential cost of the kind of power Felix wielded. But they were also never the pushovers again. Earth became a quiet powerhouse, a wild card in galactic politics, respected, even courted, but never entirely trusted. And that, Gerald and Felix both agreed over a clandestine comm channel, surprisingly financed by the Federation itself, was exactly how they liked it.